Today we have Giacomo with MineCrime, and they are tailor-made for security risk and intelligence assessments for enterprise use cases as well as small business. And they have a global platform with a really unique insight. But I think it's best said by Giacomo, so I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Stephen, for inviting me. It's a real pleasure being here and having the possibility to chat with you, to have a talk about MineCrime, about what we're doing in Italy and also in other countries. As you said during your introduction, MineCrime is, from a technical point of view, is a tech scale-up. So we are a technological company, and all of our business relies upon our software and our proprietary technology, which is named MineCrime. And MineCrime, you have to imagine it as a tool, as a software that processes on a daily basis more than 17,000 data sources at an international level. When I say data sources, I mean like open sources, open data sources, databases, social network groups, journals, digital registries, forums, blogs. So everything that is open is currently processed on a very narrow way by our software, but at the same time, our tool is connected with the proprietary database and offline databases that are held by our partners, clients, customers at a local level, the territorial local level. And so you have to imagine MineCrime as a massive data crawling system that on a daily basis processes all of these thousands of data sources and collects data on specific crime and urban decay events at scale. And all these data is processed, verified, cross-checked, and finally geolocalized. So each single event is a point on the Earth's surface. And at the top of this database that is generated through this crawling system, which is actually, there's a huge database, more than 66 million geocoded events worldwide. We have a platform that we sell to corporates, medium to large corporates, using a SaaS model. So it's a software as a service, there's a subscription, and they use MineCrime to support data-drivenly their processes of security, risk analysis, and then they support the implementation of risk mitigation procedures that are specifically devoted at better protecting the assets of these corporates, which might be infrastructures, buildings, people, and so on. So everything that has a value can be mapped, monitored, and better protected using our software. That's a brief description as far as I can make of MineCrime.
Fascinating. I imagine then you mentioned you started in Italy. Could you talk a little bit more about kind of the origin story and then how you guys might have evolved over the last few months?
Absolutely, Stephen. The project MineCrime came out of a quite broad project that I got involved into before the actual company. So I used to work as a crime analyst, which is a particular area of data analysis, which is the application of data analysis to urban security domain. So actually urban security problems, which is a discipline pretty common in the United States of America, United Kingdom, so the Anglo-Saxon countries, but not really common in all the other countries around the globe. So I used to work as a crime analyst for different local constabularies in the United Kingdom. And while I was working there, I've been involved in a project that was mainly interested in understanding and mapping the actual occurrence at an international level of commercial burglaries, especially those commercial burglaries that were hitting a big superstore or like a big, commercial structures like mega malls and stuff like that. So like shoplifting and pickpocketing within these specific structures. And considering that this project was involved in many different constabularies around Europe and some of them also from overseas, I realized that basically there was a substantial gap in the information that can be retrieved from official databases. For example, in the United States of America, United Kingdom, you can have quite easy access to geolocalized data on crime. There's a much more open culture about crime data. But if you go out of these countries, if you go into, I don't know, France, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, or whatever country it is, apart from the Anglo-Saxon ones, it's pretty much impossible to get access to this type of data. Super difficult. No way you can get access to that data unless you get access to the less granular data, like for example, the number of robberies that have occurred in a specific region of a country, which is a super wide area where basically the only data that you have is, okay, in that region have occurred 100 robberies. That's it, finished. That information is definitely not useful for companies, corporates, sometimes also local governments that need to think about interventions that might be mitigating risks by relying upon super granular data. So you definitely need to understand which assets, which street, which building is much more exposed when compared with others. And if you don't have access to geolocalized data, you cannot make any type of these assumptions. You cannot do it. So you don't have enough granularized data. So I started from this problem that was huge, because imagine that uh, uh, you know, the vast majority, in my opinion, I read an article and that was actually our TAM, so the first business analysis that we did with our company. More than 80%, according to markets, this is back in the days 2021, more or less, more than 80% of companies operating in the critical infrastructure industries, which means that, telecommunication, oil and gas, transportation, mobility, utilities. They don't use geolocalized data on security phenomena to support their risk mitigation procedures. So more than 80%, which means that 8 companies out of 10 don't do a granular and a proper micro risk location intelligence analysis. And that was huge when I was doing a sort of market analysis. So I realized, okay, there's a lot of room for business opportunities. And the tough job was actually to integrate all of these open platforms, databases, social network groups where people, third parties, entities, local governments normally share, this type of data, but they are all fragmented, they are all disconnected one with each other. So you can get a lot of interesting data from, I don't know, a local city council, but then you might be missing the information from the surrounding local city councils or the other areas surrounding that specific space, because they don't talk to each other. So there was not an integrated database for all of these platforms and data sources. So the great work that we tried to do with MineCrime was creating the first crawler that basically was just connecting all of these platforms. So it was a big connector, let's say, and to make sure that everyone who would have shared this type of information would have fallen within a sort of like integrated process that could standardize all of these data that are normally processed in a very different way depending on who is actually processing that data into a unified database. So anybody by accessing the MineCrime database and MineCrime platform can have the same type of information regardless of the fact that you might be coming from Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, or Netherlands, or whatever other country. So the problem was exactly that, and the project started in that specific spot. The beginning was not easy, and so I stick to the second part of your question, Stephen. The beginning was not easy because we perfectly realized after literally a few weeks of work that, even though the micro risk location intelligence is super common in United States of America, UK, Canada, Australia, in the Anglo-Saxon countries, when you jump out of these countries, nobody knows the micro risk location intelligence. No, I mean, actually, it's not even a problem of, it's literally a problem of awareness about the fact that this methodology, this type of approach to risk intelligence, risk analysis exists. Because, if you don't have data, you don't ask yourself the right question about, okay, how can I use this data? So the missing data didn't allow people, to security managers out of the Anglo-Saxon countries to think about the micro risk location intelligence. And the beginning was not easy because we still do a lot of culture, we go through a lot of culture. So when you first approach a company, the first phase of the lead conversion, let's say from a business perspective, is pure culture. It's like, okay, most of them, they normally reply, I didn't know that, this data exists, and how can I use them? Please show me by bringing case studies or a real case study scenario, how can I use this data and the advantages, the benefits that I can bring on board. So the beginning was not easy, of course. We were lucky enough to get on board the very first two, three big clients that trusted our solution, that were really much interested, and thanks God, the projects and the operations with them went super well, and they started to talk about MineCrime. So we had a possibility to use these clients as as portfolios, so to tell the world, listen, these big companies, very famous ones, started to use our solution. So there are some advantages within it, so try to do that, and then everything was a little bit easier. Of course, on a daily basis we had plenty of challenges, but that was a turning point. That was a key moment for our company, uh, because of the world, especially out of the Anglo-Saxon countries, started to realize that micro-risk location intelligence could be finally done also out of UK and the US. So not all in the UK and the US. And that was, in our opinion, like a key moment, a key moment. We really want to change that culture across
That's,
time.
I mean, that sounds like a really encouraging growth path that you guys are on. Uh, could you talk a little bit more about how these organizations are seeing some benefits by partnering with Mindcrime?
Absolutely, Stephen. Try to imagine the only way I think that could be used to describe the advantages is through a real case study scenario. Of course, like I'm not going to be telling the name of the company, but it is a perfect example. This company is a huge company operating in the transportation industry, especially the railway transportation, heavy trucks transportation. So they are the leader in the central part of Europe for transportation, especially industrial goods and people. They transport everything. And you are, just imagine that you are the security manager, so the manager who is in charge of the security management of this mega company, huge company. And your CFO, your chief financial officers, come to you and says, listen, Stephen, for these years, for the next 12 months, you're going to get access to $100 million that you can invest in security procedures, security interventions, whatever you want to do to make our assets, infrastructures, buildings, people, and train stations, docks, whatever it is, more secure and safer. Okay, for us, for the company, and for the travelers as well, for the people. And you have that $100 million, and you say, okay, how am I going to invest this money? Before MineCrime, they basically had to get access to the all available data, which was like, for example, the data provided by the Home Office. But the data provided by the Home Office is updated on a yearly basis. So basically, and the granularity of the data is aggregated at a NUTS 3 level. The NUTS 3 level is the province level. So imagine an area that is huge. A province in Italy, for example, but also in other countries around Europe, is an area that includes maybe inside of it more than 200 local city councils. And each local city council has internally, on average, for a medium to large local city council, more than 80 neighborhoods. So it's having a data about crime events or security events that are aggregated at the province level is completely useless. So imagine that you are the security manager and you say, okay, I need to use this $100 million. Where I'm going to invest my money? I know from a general point of view that the province of Rome, just an example, has a higher rate of, I don't know, certain type of crimes that for me are particularly relevant. So for sure, Rome is the priority. But where? Inside of the province of Rome, I've got thousands of assets, hundreds of thousands of kilometers of transportation infrastructure. Where I'm going to invest this money? I'm going to split, I don't know, $50 million equally across all of these assets, or I try to follow a different analytical rationale that can help me better invest this money in order to maximize the return on the investment. So like I make an investment and make sure that my investment gets back to me with an increased level of security, for real security. And before MineCrime, they were not able to do it. So the only thing that were done was splitting equally the money into all the different assets by following a rationale of mathematical distribution. So like, okay, I know that the province of Rome is much more risky than the others, so I'm going to put 50% of the budget over there, and I will be splitting that 50% of the budget equally across all the different assets. Absolutely not precise. With MineCrime, the advantages is that you can get access to geolocalized data. So you say, okay, I give $50 million to the province of Rome, but then using MineCrime data, I can see perfectly in a clear and daily way. So every day you get access to up-to-date data, new data. So you can constantly monitor how certain phenomena are changing and maybe are affecting the security of specific assets that you have on the territory. So instead of splitting $50 million across 2,000 assets, you might be saying, okay, those $50 million, I'm going to give $40 million for just 100 assets out of 2,000 because they are much more, statistically speaking and analytically speaking, much more exposed to risk compared to the other 1,900. And by making that investment, they increase the level of security into their assets. They reduce the number of events that might be that might be damaging those assets. And by reducing those events, you have two different benefits and advantages: direct advantages and indirect advantages. Direct advantages because you're reducing the amount of damages that you're having at your infrastructures, assets, or whatever. So from a financial point of view, you don't have to reconstruct certain assets. You don't have to repay back the providers. You don't have to, you don't have to spend money for making those assets working again. And then the indirect advantages are strictly related with the brand of the company. Imagine someone is stealing, I don't know, the railway transportation infrastructure. So they are literally stealing metals. So the train is not able to travel anymore. So you're interrupting the transportation of thousands of tourists, of people, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the middle of a shitstorm on the media saying, oh, the train are not working, people cannot travel from a city to another, I need to go to work, I paid a lot of money to travel over there, I'm a tourist, god damn it, the transport. So the indirect damages that you're having. So by using our data, you can actually reduce the risks related with these damages, and the advantages are immediate in terms of money, in terms of reputation, in terms of operations, business continuity, and crisis management. That's actually I try to make it through an example because I think it's much more effective, Stephen. But that's exactly how does it work with our clients nowadays.
That's a fascinating perspective. Imagine with MineCrime's focus on micro risk location intelligence, you guys are having obviously fantastic results with your clients. What are they saying when they see this statistical analysis that you're able to provide?
Well, the first thing that they say, I'm actually laughing because the first reaction is pretty much the same. You know, discovery, like I didn't know that these data were available in a way. Like, I didn't know it. And then all of a sudden, they find themselves uh, as a sort of like, not confused, but like super interested, but how can I use them in a super effective way? Because I know, because imagine that when you completely switch your perspective on a certain type of phenomena by moving your point of view from an upper level to a super narrow level, the switch needs, takes time. So you need to move from an approach that is super general into a super specific approach. So the first reaction that they have is like, I didn't know that, and how can I use it? But then after a short period of usage, they become really dependent out of this technology and the informational asset that we provide. Because imagine that, they say it is like a sort of like a person constantly sitting next to you, telling you and giving you hints, insights, information about what is going on around the areas where you have your assets, your key assets. So you become dependent because on a daily basis, it's like a person that on every day tells you, okay, watch out, the crime is evolving that way, and the relationship with your assets are this. So the level of exposition, the exposure are 1, 2, 3. So pay attention to asset A, B, C. So it's like someone that constantly supports your work. So they recognize that. That's the reason why we are super happy about that. There's an entity in Italy named the SMAU that is pretty much famous around especially Europe, and is an organization that tries to identify the most impactful project in terms of innovation between corporates and startups slash scale ups. So they try to identify at a European level the projects that are much more impacting on the processes of some of the corporates that are normally revolving around this entity. And, we started our operation at the end of 2021. And since 2022, basically in 2022, one of our clients got a recognition, an award for the work that has been done in terms of changing the security management procedures according to MineCrime data. The year after, the Ferrovie dello Stato, which is a national railway group in Italy, but it operates in many other countries, same story. Last year, Italgas, which is a multinational company in the oil and gas industry. So the benefits of our informational assets are concrete. They literally, and I'm super happy to say that we have still a lot of work to be done, but on a daily basis, it really, really helps the way security managers that have a massive responsibility in terms of investment and guaranteeing an adequate security level to the assets can actually navigate through all the problems and massive amount of information that they can have access to in a super direct, straight, proactive way in terms of intervention. So that's the reaction and the feeling that they are having. So a deep need of this type of information.
That's really exciting to hear that they're getting true ROI from your guys' platform. I mean, MineCrime's seemingly differentiated. I've personally never come across anything like it. Where do you see the company going over the next 12 months?
Over the next 12 months, we are actually going to focus on scaling up the growth in the sense that until now, we basically focused our business operations on mega multinational companies. Like, in our portfolio, we have not 1,000 clients, we have few dozens of them. And in terms of like management of this growth that we had in the past, in these 3 years of life and operations, it was easy to manage at least few dozens of clients. But now, if you want to really scale, and push MineCrime across many different industries, across companies with different dimensions, especially the medium-sized companies, we need to create and to push a decent growth strategy. So for the next 12 months, we're going to be implementing a super vertical growth strategy with a tech stack that is going to be 100% focused on scaling up the solution and trying to adapt our solution to the needs of medium-sized companies, which is already ready, the platform, in the sense that some of the most complex functions and operations that might be done with MineCrime are going to be crossed out, because the smaller the companies are, the less the amount of risk they have to analyze are. So that they operate maybe in an easier context in that sense. But we really want to push and keep growing across the medium-sized companies operating in the critical infrastructure industries. So we are not going to be changing the industries where we might be selling MineCrime, but we really want to grow. And within this specific domain, we are working towards the completion of the seed round by the end of this year, because we are finally ready to raise money, because we haven't fundraised yet. We grew on our own bootstrapping till now. So the idea is to make a correlation between growth strategy, activation of the growth strategy plus seed round that could help us to consolidate the market in the central part, for sure in Italy and in a couple of other countries in Europe by the end of 2026. That's the roadmap for the next 12 months. 18 months, we say 12 to 18 months.
That growth makes a lot of sense, and your focus on it, I think, is well placed. For viewers and listeners, as well as myself, how would we get smarter on MineCrime's focus on micro risk location intelligence?
Well, basically, micro risk location intelligence is a vertical area of the already existing location intelligence, which is pretty much easy to understand. Location intelligence is a domain that is super common and famous and used in industries such as advertising, marketing, and plenty of other services revolving around marketing and advertising. Um, but in the last few years, actually, there was, especially in the Anglo-Saxon countries, of course, the Anglo-Saxon countries are the countries that are leading the way in the sense of innovations, technologies, and stuff like that. In the last 20 years, actually, there was an increasing demand and request for the application of location intelligence methodologies to the area of risk. So, like how microdata, constantly up to date microdata, can be exploited to increase the security levels of assets, especially when these assets are many assets and distributed in many different areas of countries, of regions, and stuff like that. So the the micro risk location intelligence is something that is strictly related with data geolocal, and the more the data is vectorized, means like geolocalized data. That's the only request for the micro risk location intelligence, having access to data sources that can provide a constant access to geolocalized data on specific type of crime phenomena, and is a methodology that allows you to make comparisons between assets, for example, like understanding if an asset is much more exposed than another one, and which is the seasonality of risk. That's another really interesting aspects of micro risk location intelligence: seasonality and time-oriented analysis for risk. So, like getting an understanding, imagine that you are like a retail company, so you have a lot of stores, and your security management units is centralized in your HQ. So you have to analyze all the different stores and make distinctions between one of them, because according to these differences you need to make investments that are different. So, like you need to understand specifically for each of these locations which are the risks, where they are located, when they occur, which is the pattern. And this information needs to be super precise. So the only way to do that and to optimize your investment is to actually have access to that type of data. And the only way to do it is to rely upon a technology that gives you that data. And that's exactly where MineCrime is trying to get into, and it's trying to growing. So that specific spot. And there are plenty of companies, plenty. There are quite a few companies that are uh, they are trying to exploit the micro risk location intelligence, especially in the Anglo-Saxon countries, for obvious reasons. In terms of data availability, is huge, is massive over there, but is one of the most relevant needs nowadays for companies and local governments as well. Imagine that one of the latest research that has been shared by Bloomberg as well, that's another interesting hint, is that in the agenda of the priorities for medium to large corporates and for local governments as well. So over here we are talking about business to business models and business to government models. So it's still something strictly connected for this specific reason. The one of the three most relevant topics to be dealt with for them in the next 20 years of the agenda is security and risk. It's crucial, it's critical for them. Like that's why there's a lot of room for the micro risk location intelligence to grow. Yeah.
Fascinating. If for anyone that might be interested, what's the best way that they can get in touch with your team at MineCrime?
There are two different ways. Even one through the website. We have contact form where you have the possibility to select the different uh, recipients of your contact. So it might be like the administration, it could be the tech team, it could be the general info team, and there are different options. And if you want to have a chat with us, it might be a technical chat, it might be a more business chat, or just a general info chat. just select the option. So you can contact us through the contact form, or you can add me on LinkedIn, just like you did, and we can have a chat whenever you want. I mean, I'm more than happy to share with you as many information as possible about MineCrime.
Fantastic, Giacomo. I really appreciate this today. And I
Thanks,
think you
Stephen.
guys are onto something that's going to really improve communities across the world. So this has been a great session. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks a lot. And thanks for everybody.